Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about factoring a quadratic when both a and c are positive. So notice how I didn't read out that function. If it's in the form x squared plus bx plus c, it's known as a quadratic. And if we really got into it, we're not there yet, but if we really got into it, a is also part of this basic formula or function. It's in front of x. So right now, we're only going to be talking about the times when a is equal to 1. So there's no reason to list a because it's always going to be listed to 1. But pay attention to the little details that go on here. What we're looking to do is turn this function, x squared plus 10x plus 16, into a polynomial. By turning it into a polynomial, we can work with things like finding the x-intercepts and a few other things. So let's get to it. If we realize we're just trying to work in reverse of what we've done before, what we're trying to do is reverse FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. Well, there's a way to look at doing that, and that is we look at the factors of 16. Well, the reason it's 16 for this particular problem is because it has that leading coefficient on x, on x squared, which is 1, and it has this 16 over here as our constant. And we're multiplying 1 times 16 to determine what factors we're looking for. Now, I already know two factors. I have 1 times 16, which is the same as 16 times 1. So when we find one, we find the other. The factors are 1 and 16. When I solve that, I get 17. I then look at the next set of factors, and that's 8 times 2, because 8 times 2 is 16. And 8 plus 2 is 10. And then I've got 4 times 4 is also equal to 16, and 4 plus 4 is 8. Now that I found all of the factors, which are just 1 times 16, 2 times 8, and 4 times 4, now I'm going to look at their sum, because this will help me narrow down even further what I need to build my polynomials. I'm going to look for the number 10. And that is because when I have the factors of 16, I was wanting to say a times c, but a isn't listed. We went over that earlier. That was my pause. When we find the factors of 16, I also need them to add up to 10, because if you remember FOIL, you're going to be multiplying your first and your last, and then you're going to be multiplying your inner and outer numbers there, and then there's some addition that goes on in there. That's where this addition comes from. And what I notice is that 10 shows up in my chart here. Now, when you get to Algebra 2, there are going to be times where that doesn't easily come up. In other words, notice how we're using 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. There are other numbers we could multiply, but they're decimals and fractions. Right now, we're worried about whole numbers. And as a matter of fact, we're worried about integers. We'll be going into that in the next few examples. So I'm only worried about integers at this time, and later on in Algebra 2, you'll discover what happens when they aren't integers that multiply up, and we have a formula for that. So what I'm looking for really is to use, let's go with, we'll stick with magenta. We're looking to use these two factors, and I'll also highlight them here because, oh, no, don't want to do that. That orange really makes it disappear. So we're looking at the 2 and the 8. And I got to realize that that's a positive 2, and that's a positive 8. And all I'm going to do is turn it into a polynomial. In other words, two expressions multiplied together. Here we go. Polynomial being multiplied. Now I'm going to be able to use this to find x-intercepts and anything else I can use it for. And I'm done. That's it. That's how we reverse FOIL, is we find the product of the first and the last of a quadratic. Key there, we can't just do this with any. It's got to be a quadratic. And then when you find the factors that not only multiply up to that, but also add to the coefficient of the middle term, then you use those two numbers to write your polynomial. We'll get into what happens if some of them are negative next.